What up, peeps? It's time for another episode of Gross Pointe Bake. The money being made, the copies being sold, the eyeballs on the shows, man. We talking the numbers on this show. How much did this movie gross? How much did this album sell? How many people watched this? That's what this show is all about. We taking opinions out of it. We taking any kind of biases you got. We taking all that out. We want to know what was making what, who made what, and when, and where, and how much it made, and how much that cost. You know, and in this particular episode, we're going to do the top 10 highest grossing Denzel Washington movies where he was the star. Top 10 Denzel Washington movies adjusted for inflation so we can get a more accurate read on which of his movies was putting the most butts in the seats. Now, Denzel Washington he's one of the few true movie stars still out here that can damn near guarantee some box office. We've transitioned into a place in Hollywood and in movie going where people aren't really automatically showing up for the actor anymore. It's only a few actors that are like that. Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel Washington, who are pretty much guaranteed, like, all right, we're going to show up and we're going to peep game on the strength of the actor. And Denzel Washington is one of those actors. We just gonna show up regardless just because he's in it. Now, let's go into, all right, what movies was really putting butts in the seats on the Denzel tip? And what do you think is gonna be number one? What's your prediction? Off the top of your head, what's your prediction? What you think is gonna be the top grossing Denzel Washington movie right there? All right, let's find out, man. Let's get into it without further ado. Adjusted for inflation now. Now, if you go look at the list, and it's gonna be different because you're not adjusting for that inflation. Okay. Number 10, The Bone Collector. The Bone Collector stars Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie. He plays a detective who gets into an accident and he can no longer walk. So now they're on a case together to try to solve who the killer is, leaving these little clues around. And he was also an author in this movie as well. I started rewatching that movie again on a flight because I hadn't seen it in a while. And I was just like, yo, The Bone Collector, I remember enjoying this joint. At the time of its release, it made like $60-something million at the box office. So we adjusting for inflation. And Denzel Washington, to his credit, he doesn't have many bad movies. Honestly, he doesn't have that many blemishes on his resume. I feel like Virtuosity and maybe that last movie he did are probably, in my opinion, his worst two films. I can't remember the name of that movie that just came, The Little Pieces or whatever, or The Little Things or something like that. And I was just like, man, this movie sucks. But other than that, you know what I'm saying? His resume is fire. So The Bone Collector is number 10 with $119.7 million grossed at the box office, adjusted for inflation. And that movie I didn't like is called The Little Things. Number 9, Courage Under Fire. Courage Under Fire with Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan. It tells the story of Meg Ryan plays a soldier who was killed in battle, they say, and it's pretty much the case to solve how she ended up dying for real. And Denzel Washington is on the case to try to figure out, you know, what really happened to this girl. Courage Under Fire made the adjusted equivalent of $122.4 million at the U.S. box office, and that's coming in at number 9. I remember that movie being pretty good, too. His haircut was funny in that joint. He had that military flat top going. And I remember the movie Heart Condition. Heart Condition bombed at the box office, though. It was Denzel Washington and Bob Hoskins. Bob Hoskins was this bigoted dude who ends up getting Denzel Washington's heart in a transplant, and so he could see Denzel. Nobody else could see him, but he could see Denzel. So now he's stuck with this black man who, you know, is responsible for saving his life, but he's coming to terms with that. I remember really wanting to see that movie, but it didn't do well at the box office at all. Number 8 is probably going to surprise a lot of you because you probably would have thought it was going to come in higher. Training Day. Number 8, $123.5 million at the adjusted box office in the U.S. It made like $70-something million at the time of its release, and that's in 2001 money. Training Day is number 8. We all know what Training Day is about. It got Denzel his second Oscar, first Oscar as actor. His other one was for supporting role in Glory. Training Day was a hit. It was iconic. It's quotable. We all know Training Day. But Training Day is number 8, $123.5 million at the box office. Number 7, and this is a close 7. Training Day almost beat it. The Inside Man, starring Denzel, Clive Owen, Jodie Foster. It's about a bank heist, and he's the cop on the case to figure out, where the bank robbers, where they went. Where are these guys at? Who's responsible for this bank robbery, man? They had a genius plan in this movie. It was directed by Spike Lee, and Spike Lee and Denzel worked together a lot. They worked together on Malcolm X. They did Mo Better Blues. They did He Got Game. And The Inside Man made the equivalent of $124 million at the U.S. box office. This is Spike Lee's highest grossing film, I believe, that he's directed. So that lets you know, that's giving you a clue that another film might not be on this list. So Inside Man's coming in number 7. Number 6, with $145.3 million at the adjusted U.S. box office, Safe House. Safe House co-starred Ryan Reynolds. It was a box office hit. A lot of people don't really talk about Safe House, but Safe House was a solid movie. Again, this is Denzel, so everything's solid damn near. It was a good, you don't know if he was the good guy or the bad guy. Safe House made money at the box office. It was a good role for Ryan Reynolds, and Ryan Reynolds was serious Ryan Reynolds. He wasn't silly, snarky Ryan Reynolds. This was like, he was serious in this movie. And Ryan Reynolds is always good at doing dramatic or comedic. He can do both. Safe House was legit though. I rewatched it recently and I was like, yo, this movie's pretty solid right here. So Safe House, number 6, $145.3 million at the box office. That's inflated. All right, so don't be going to look it up and be like, man, these numbers are all off, Tone. That's because you're not looking at the adjusted inflation, man. We're talking butts in the seats. We gotta adjust. We gotta adjust for that inflation. Now we in the top 5. We in the nitty gritty now. Number 5, American Gangster. $173.4 million at the U.S. box office, adjusted for inflation. We all know about American Gangster. We all know what it is. We all know who he played. We all know he was in there with Russell Crowe, and American Gangster was fire. It's a good movie. I really enjoyed it. American Gangster might be in my top 10 Denzel Washington movies. I come back to that movie often just to watch it. It was directed by Ridley Scott. Denzel Washington has a great working relationship with the Scott brothers. He was in 4 films directed by Tony Scott. Denzel was in Man on Fire, Unstoppable, Crimson Tide, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Deja Vu. So Denzel has done 5 movies with Tony Scott, and he did 1 with Ridley Scott, and that is American Gangster. So that's number 5 at $173.4 million at the box office. Number 4, Philadelphia. Philadelphia he co-starred in it with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks got his first Oscar win for this movie. Tom Hanks played a lawyer who had contracted HIV that developed into AIDS, and he ended up getting fired. And so he was trying to sue them because they fired him just because he had, HIV. And so that's what the movie's about, directed by Jonathan Demme, who also did Silence of the Lambs. The movie did about $70-some million in 1993 money. That's equated to $173.7 million today. Great film, very emotional, great performances. It's Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, man. What more do you need? And this is mustache Denzel Washington, you know what I'm saying? Philadelphia, number 4. Number 3, Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. That was an early summer release in 95. The movie made $192.6 million at the box office, adjusted for inflation, of course, directed by Tony Scott, like I was saying. Great film, great performances from Denzel and Gene Hackman. The tension that was built in this movie, it was a really good movie, really entertaining, kept you on the edge of your seat the whole movie. Crimson Tide is a good-ass time. That's a good movie right there. And if you haven't seen Crimson Tide, highly recommend it. Great joint. It's number 3, $192.6 million. Number 2, Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans. Denzel Washington plays a football coach. I believe it's based on a true story, if I'm not mistaken. Remember the Titans was just a good time, man. That was a movie where you watch and you just walk away from the theater like that was a good ass movie. Remember the Titans is one of those universally loved movies. Everybody looks on it fondly. Great performances, great cast. It did well for Disney. Grossed over $100 million in its theatrical release. Inflated. It's got $196.6 million at the box office. That's a good ass time right there. But let's get to the number one. The number one Denzel Washington movie at the box office. Number one, numero uno. Wait, I'm gonna Ryan Seacrest y'all real quick. Before I get to the number one, let me double check on something, man. Because y'all brought up Man on Fire, all right? Another Tony Scott, Denzel Washington collab. And I just want to make sure I didn't fumble the numbers. Let's just double check. Let's triple check. Man on Fire, because it made $77 million in 2004. Yeah, I'm right. It shouldn't be in the top 10. Okay. Number one, The Pelican Brief. Julia Roberts, Denzel Washington. The Pelican Brief came out in 1993. It made over $100 million at the box office in 93 money. That equates to $224.1 million at the U.S. box office adjusted for inflation. That is Denzel Washington's highest grossing film adjusted for inflation. The Pelican Brief. Julia Roberts was Mrs. Box Office. You throw Denzel in there, and Denzel then wasn't what Denzel is now. So it was just like, it was a good combo. When Denzel Washington won the Oscar for Training Day, I remember her being super excited because she was a presenter. She was mad hype. And I was like, why is she so hype? And I forgot they worked together on The Pelican Brief years before. So I was like, oh yeah. So she was mad excited. Julia Roberts, Denzel Washington. That is his highest grossing film so far to date. The Pelican Brief. And The Pelican Brief is good. Like I said, Denzel Washington doesn't have that many blemishes on his record in terms of quality, and The Pelican Brief was a good watch. You had all things working for it. John Grisham was hot. They were making his novels into movies, and so he had a good track record there. He also did The Firm and The Client and these other kind of movies. So John Grisham was good box office business. Julia Roberts was hot at this time. She was coming off of Pretty Woman and Sleeping with the Enemy, and she was just box office gold. And then Denzel Washington, you know, he's an Academy Award winner. He can bring in the black side of things, and so it was a perfect marriage of like, all right, let's show up and see what this movie's about right here. This is before Denzel became guaranteed box office. It took a while for Denzel to become guaranteed box office to where people were just going to show up on the strength of Denzel. That didn't happen until like Crimson Tide was a hit, but after Crimson Tide, he did Devil in the Blue Dress. That didn't really, resonate at the box office, and He Got Game didn't really do that good. I feel like once he hit the stride with like Man on Fire and stuff like that and Training Day and movies like this is when he became the Denzel that we know now. So that's it. The top 10 highest grossing Denzel Washington movies to date, adjusted for inflation, at the U.S. box office. Are you surprised by the number one movie? Are you surprised certain movies didn't make it into this top 10? Let me know. I'm sure a lot of you thought, oh, it's going to be The Equalizer. It's going to be The Equalizer. We had to adjust for that inflation. If we didn't adjust for inflation, The Equalizer 1 and 2 would be in this top 10. Remember the Titans would still be here. The Pelican Brief would still be here. Safe House would still be here. American Gangster. But since we do that adjust for inflation, this is the top 10 we got. Let me know what you thought was going to be number one in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite Denzel Washington and your least favorite Denzel Washington movie. Let me know in the comment section below. Also, I'm always open to ideas of lists you want me to tackle in future episodes. Remember, this is not opinion based. We just doing the numbers here at Gross Pointe Bake. All numbers, man. No bias. All numbers, man. We out.